You can hear me okay, can't you? So I'll move my little
Yes, we can hear you quite well. Quite well. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast, Sisters of Wellness, taking you all the way to Australia. My guest today is Chara Caruthers. Thank you. It's already Tuesday.
It is. We are in the future over here.
You're originally from California?
I am, yeah. I grew up in Orange County, California.
Chara is in Australia. She is the owner of BlissBody and Soul.
Yeah. And
she is a yoga instructor. And you're an engineer.
Well, yes. I'm a lot of things.
So an engineer that went to UCLA, a yoga instructor, and an Ayurveda.
An Ayurvedic practitioner, and a yoga therapist.
And a yoga therapist. And in Australia, how did all that happen?
Oh, how much time do you have? You know what's funny is I have met so many folks who used to be engineers and are now in the yoga world, now are yoga instructors. Yeah, you know, it's an interesting thing. I think it's, I don't know. I think there's some connection between the two that I haven't quite figured out yet. But yeah, I mean, I finished school and I was an engineer for about a little bit more than a decade. And there was always this conflict, this inner conflict happening. And I finally got, just before I'm a mother of twins who are now 16 years old.
Oh,
just before having kids, I kind of got the courage to make a change. And eventually the change looked like becoming a yoga teacher. And then from there, it all just happened.
Well, let me just tell you this, as a fellow yoga teacher, the salary is nowhere close to what engineers make.
True.
So how do you come to the peace of walking away from that kind of money to do something that is, it's not as financially rewarding initially, but definitely rich?
The choice, what I did was I walked away from the corporate world and I walked into, along with my husband, into the world of entrepreneurship. And because of that, I felt like I had at least a financial safety net. We'd made a lot of really smart choices. We were living in New York City. We'd made some smart choices in terms of the way that we invested and saved our money. And both of us knew that we needed a change. We needed a shift. And so we shifted away from, this was around 2006, I think it was. We shifted out of the corporate world and we started investing in real estate and things like that. And so because of that, all of my attention, all the work that I'd done, all the skills that I'd had in project management, all of that shifted towards this whole real estate thing. And that took care of one side of me, I suppose, but there was still this inner work, there was still this kind of spiritual longing and this focus around health and wellness and trying to take care of myself, and an understanding, especially having come out of the corporate world, of how important that truly is. How we have this tendency to throw ourselves under the bus and we have late nights and we make bad choices and we end up living in these bodies that are stressed out and that are suffering. And that was an experience that I was having at that moment, trying to get pregnant, having trouble, and deciding that I needed to walk away from all of that, and make some smart choices for myself.
We are talking to Chara Caruthers. It's Tuesday where she is in Australia. She is a woman who is committed to helping to share the message about health and wellness, and Sisters of Wellness, sowing love and wisdom, as the scriptures talk about in Titus, that older women are to teach the younger women. And I feel like we are missing out on the real role and responsibility in not passing on. And in this moment, and I'm so happy to meet you via this medium. as we celebrate Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. What an example of what continuing to push forward looks like. And, you know, coming from a mom, a single parent home, and now she is the Vice President-elect of the United States of America. We've heard all of her first, but seeing that to me just says to me and to you and all the rest of us who've taken on this mantle and responsibility is we have so much to do to continue to push other women forward and to share. And so let me just thank you for pausing in your day to be a part of this and to share with so many other women this journey that you've been on. I have a friend, Brunella. She's an engineer. She's now bodybuilding.
Right.
At Brunella Brown Johnson, I will not tell your age. She looks great. But, you know, to move from corporate, you know, being an engineer and now bodybuilding. Tell me this, how important do you see what you are doing as a woman, an African-American woman, in an arena that we're not that represented in?
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, and it's mostly lately. You're right. We are not that represented in this health and wellness industry. And that is something that breaks my heart, but it's also something that really galvanizes me towards action. Given where we are right now, and man, I think there's certainly a lot more hope that exists in the space right now as a result of the election and what's ahead. But what I also recognize, and this is something I've been thinking so much about lately, what I also recognize is that self-care is how we get our power back. It's how we get our power back. And for me, what that means, especially having engaged with a number of, you know, in this last year, with so many more people and women of color than I had previously, feeling incredibly blessed and grateful for all of that. Having had that engagement with them and being motivated and inspired by them, I feel so much more strongly now that I need to play a really important role in spreading this message of health and wellness and of self-care, you know, amongst my BIPOC, you know, brothers and sisters, really.
Well, in sharing that, sometimes it may not be as well received as you would like for it to be.
Sure.
And in the midst of this COVID pandemic that we're in, and the fact that people of color are, it's said at the height of this, we're not even there yet.
Yeah.
That 1 in 5 African Americans will die from COVID. And at the base of that are all of these other illnesses that we have that can be corrected. How do we reach people who are in an addiction that they don't realize that they're in?
I think we start
food addiction.
We start by showing up as ourselves. I think one of the things that has truly touched and inspired me in the last year and more is that I'm seeing more people that look like me sharing their stories, sharing their wisdom. And I think showing up as who we are in our communities, it's as, you know, as women or as people who are advocating for self-care, who are advocating for health and wellness, I think we send a quiet message, if not a loud one, that this is for you. This is for everyone. I've certainly taken that when I've seen, you know, women of color out there doing it, spreading the message, making smarter choices, etc. I think hearing it from your own is such an important thing. It makes it easier to hear, and it makes it, to me, it makes it more compelling and interesting.
Yeah. So when I think about the story of Daniel in the Bible, and, you know, people do the Daniel fast, and he was in prison and he refused the king's food. but when they brought him out, he looked healthier because he did not eat of the king's food. And so that's where the Bible story comes about, and the 21-day Daniel fast that many people will do at the beginning of the year. And Chara, what I think about with that is how we as African Americans, there was a war fought to keep us on plantations because we had the ability to do physical manual labor. We had that ability. That was in 1865. So the Emancipation Proclamation, 1865. Fast forward, that wasn't that long ago. And now we're in the worst health of any group of people in the United States of America. And what you have elected to do in trying to share the message of health and wellness and returning to the DNA of who you are. I think that we see the food that we eat as being who we are. And it's really not. That's not what we used to eat.
No.
That's not us at all.
No. No, I think, and the message that I'm really sharing through, writing and talking with people and just showing up is that we have to start with our mindset. We have to start with looking within. The book that I've written is called Eat Like You Love Yourself. And the idea is that it's a part of a series. It's basically it's an expression of my message, which is live like you love yourself. And so we have to start by understanding, what does that look like? And it looks different for every single person. And so we have to start here. We have to start in our own homes, in our own minds, in our own bodies, to try to answer those questions. And then once we can find that, what's at the center of all of that, I think from there, we start to make smarter choices. When we know that the foundation is this intention of living like we love ourselves.
Well, see, but if macaroni and cheese makes me feel good and a big old slice of carrot cake, what are you talking about? That's what we have labeled that as comfort food. Yeah. And if I feel good eating that, what are you talking about? Eat like I love myself. I am.
So you have to take it apart. You have to take it apart a little bit more. We have to understand that we have these natural tendencies towards things. All of us do. We reach for comfort, and we reach for, for more all the time. But we have to question ourselves. We have to question whether that is actually what's best for us. And I think when we do, it's funny, whenever I've asked that question of people, are you eating like you love yourself? If they sit with that, they have a sense. We have an inherent sense, an inherent knowing about what it feels like and what it looks like to truly nourish ourselves. And yeah, that might mean carrot cake every once in a while. I just had some for my birthday about a week ago.
Did you? How was it?
Yeah, it was great. Actually, my husband made it. It was a gluten-free carrot cake. That might mean those treats every once in a while, but we all know, that living in a state of constantly seeking and this comfort and constantly seeking more is not going to serve us in the long run.
What is it that, for those who are watching, hello, Josette. Josette actually is out in California. She lives in Texas. My cousin, Josette, who is a designer. So how do we start to make the shift? Because I'm really, really, really serious about this. That this is how At the Wellness Network started, because my three oldest brothers are dead because of food-related illnesses. And we don't have to keep dying from food-related illnesses. But African Americans, because of the state of our health right now, to know that one in five, it is projected that 1 in 5 African Americans will die of COVID because of the underlying health issues that we have. What do you say to people? You say that eat like you love yourself.
Mm.
But if you haven't been taught what it feels like to have a good feeling after you eat or whatever you're consuming,
Mm.
how do you get people to that? And so you have a book, Eat Like You Love Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to people in that book? And by the way, you need to get the book.
Yeah. The book is actually full of Ayurvedic wisdom. And Ayurvedic wisdom is really, really simple. What it says at its core is that we are digesting machines. So everything that we're experiencing in our lives, including food, the information, the weather, the ideas, the people around us, we as a body mind complex, we have to digest all of this. We have to assimilate it somehow. We have to extract the nourishing aspects of it and get rid of anything that isn't really nourishing us. And we all know what it feels like to have digestive problems one way or another, right? We either feel it in our belly, we're overloaded,
Mm-hmm.
where we feel heavy, or we feel it in our minds, we feel stuck in our lives, or we feel we have experiences that we haven't fully processed or let go of. We have anger, or we have resentment, or whatever it is, jealousy, those sorts of things. So it's about recognizing, first of all, how am I actually feeling as a human being? Is there some aspect of my life that I am overdoing it? Am I taking in too much of something, too much food, or too much information, or too much, too many people, too much noise? And for most of us in our lives, we really are. And so this idea of eating like you love yourself, we think, well, gosh, how am I supposed to know what the right food is? The first question really is, are you doing too much? Is there something that you can pull back from? And I think everyone can say yes to that in their lives. We're all taking in too much of something. And that is the beginning. We have to trust. We have to understand that there are connections between you overloading yourself on information and you overloading yourself on macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. So look, you just said something. You talked about emotions as it relates to eating and your mental state as a result of eating. Can you talk about the gut brain and how we may think that we're only eating because we're hungry? But how does food affect us emotionally?
Mm. Yeah, there are lots of views about that, actually. And I particularly come from the Ayurvedic view. And the Ayurvedic view is that, there's a lot of different layers of it. But in essence, the Ayurvedic view is that we have emotional triggers, and we've built in actions or activities that we undertake when those are emotional triggers get triggered for whatever reason. And so some of the way that we eat and the amounts of foods that we eat, those are all just habits related to triggers. And so what's important is for us to understand what those triggers feel like in our bodies. Right there, this whole last couple of weeks, my belly was so tight. I could feel this sort of low, this buzzing in my body. And I knew that that was anxiety. And I knew that my tendency in relation to that anxiety was to seek comfort in any way that I could. And I knew that my habit might be to, I was cooking, I was baking, I was doing all kinds of things. That my habit may be to reach for certain things. When we start to understand these things about ourselves, we've created a space within which to make choices, healthy choices. And so for me, the work really is about understanding ourselves. My mantra in the book and in general is know yourself, love yourself. But what we often do is that we've got this health and wellness industry that says loving yourself looks like this. It looks like eating a keto diet or eating who knows what, running, 5 miles a day or something. But we have to start with knowing ourselves first. We have to start with feeling what's happening in here today. Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I challenged? And what does that, what habits are associated with that? Because all we want to do is avoid feeling not right, feeling off.
Yucky.
Exactly. We want to avoid yuckiness.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that by numbing ourselves, by overwhelming ourselves with stuff. And it's, just understanding that simple idea gives us so much information and so much power.
Yeah. I remember when I had acid reflux really, really bad. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed the little purple pill.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how long am I going to have to take it? And he said, oh, probably the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
Marcus Welby would heal people in 30 minutes. What do you mean?
Exactly. All of that is so disempowering as well,
Yeah. So, I went home and I started thinking, so let me pay it. What is it that I'm eating that makes this worse?
Mm-hmm. And
Quit
how are you
eating it?
And how are you feeling?
Yeah.
There's connections between all of it. I'm upset at work. I had that argument with my partner. Something happened. I'm going to pizza. All of a sudden my belly's, I'm, feeling upset. And sometimes sometimes the pizza is even gone. Sometimes it's just the aggravation or the upset or the weather or all kinds of different things, the undigested experiences from your childhood. We can go deep here. Some of these things, some of this
Dive
trauma,
in. Go ahead. I'll follow you. Go ahead.
some of this trauma that we're holding on to.
Undigested feelings of our childhood.
Yep. Some of that shows up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even deeper than that, Chara, the undigested, the unidentified emotions that we carry from our ancestors.
That's it.
That we don't even know. We don't even know to address. We don't even know to ask for forgiveness of. I think so much of what we're seeing in this country are people who are suffering from undigested feelings of their ancestors.
Yep.
And there's not much of a space to address that.
No.
But the pharmaceutical industry is filling up every block in the commercial space on television and in magazines. But we are not dealing with undigested emotions that are impacting us and making us sick and killing us.
Yeah. Definitely.
How do you get them there? How do you help people to understand that?
I think what's important is spreading and reinforcing the message that taking care of ourselves is what we need to do. That rest is what we need to do. That building physical and mental and emotional resilience is what we need to do.
And as people, where do they start? They can start with getting your book. Where can they get your book?
You can get my book online on my website, which is www.blissbodyandsoul.com. Especially from where we are right now, I think we do start by taking stock in our lives of what is our relationship to self-care? What is our relationship to rest? We are people who don't rest, don't want to rest, don't know how to rest, and in many ways don't truly know how to care for ourselves, because we are dealing with this foundation across the board of undigested trauma. So most of us, all we're doing is just trying not to feel yucky, as opposed to dealing with some of that trauma. And so it starts with really feeling it, digging in. What does it feel like? How does it show up?
So what you're saying is some of this, or a large part of this, it's kind of like with dealing with drug addiction or alcoholism. I had an expert say that the ism is only 10% of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest of it is some emotional, or what you call undigested emotions. And so if food is only 10%,
Mm,
then that's encouraging to people. I think that ought to be encouraging.
yeah.
It's it's only the food is only 10% of the challenge. The rest of it is heart and mind and your emotions. And man, what a topic that we do not want to talk about.
I know.
Mental illness. What?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mental health.
Mental health.
Mental
Is
health.
that the politically correct? Okay,
I
mental
think
health.
it's well, that's a thing. We don't want to talk about anything related to the mind, really.
Yeah.
No one wants to be labeled, as having any kind of a mental illness or mental challenges of any kind. And so, we take in more information or pharmaceuticals, or, there's this message that society, places on us. This, there's this view that if we dive into our mental and emotional experience, it may mean that there's something not quite right there. But I think we have to start by understanding that everyone has a responsibility to keep their own, to deal with mental and emotional housekeeping. Everyone has that responsibility. We're not going to make it go away by, taking pills, or, over the long term, or eating food, or buying a new car or a new outfit or whatever, or dancing. I mean, we have to deal with it. We have to be willing to feel it. And I think that's certainly my invitation to people right now, because we're not, we've turned a little bit of a new leaf, but it's still just a beginning. And what are we going to need to push through? It's not a sprint, as you probably heard. It's all of this is really a marathon. And in order to do that and not be burned out, and not, in 6 months' time be, drowning our sorrows in whatever, ice cream, pizza, or whatever it is, we do need to be willing to feel it. We need to be willing to feel where we are right now. And for that, we need time and space.
And
And
how
it's,
do we
go ahead.
how do we create that time and that space as all of the stuff that got us to this point is still going to be going on? It's
Mm,
still churning. How do we carve out that time and space for ourselves?
we make it a priority. When I think about all the time that has been, so much time that has been spent, even on over the last week, watching TV uselessly, but waiting and just wanting, when we could have just turned it off, gotten a little more sleep, taken a walk, had a conversation with someone we loved. We have to make it a priority. Because
Waiting to see what color the state was going to be.
exactly. How much time did we spend? And we all do it. We all do it. But it's becoming aware of the fact that that is robbing you. That is robbing you of mental and emotional space. Well and truly, because it's filling your head and your mind, your body. It's filling you up, and it is compromising your ability to digest.
And as a journalist,
Mm.
I've always realized the huge responsibility with being a reporter or an anchor. But what I see now um, can be very manipulative, because as we were watching to see what the numbers were going to be with the Electoral College, I
Mm.
said to my husband, "Does anybody still get COVID?" You know,
Yeah.
before November 3rd, we were just bombarded with the COVID numbers. Then, after the election, we were bombarded with the map. and
Mm-hmm.
counting. The COVID cases were still going up. It's like,
Yep.
does the Gaza Strip still exist? I mean, we are so fueled by what they decide to feed us. And you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely correct. We have to stop it. We have to understand, because, the fact that I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning 2 nights in a row, it didn't change anything.
No.
I missed some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't
And
helping
that's
them out.
important. Your
Yeah,
sleep
yeah.
is important. You've now compromised your your ability to physically, mentally, and emotionally digest life just by saying, I'm going to stay up and I'm not going to sleep. And
I
we
didn't
do these.
intend to.
No, we don't intend to.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
begins with understanding that that's what we're doing.
And I don't
You
think
know,
people do. I think, and that's
don't.
why I said, where do we start? Because we're all in this vicious cycle. And
Yeah.
in a cycle, Chara, that feels like it's the norm. We think everybody else is doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a good bit of the population was, but not everybody.
Yeah.
And so for us as African American women, how is it? I mean, that's just been, I think of us as, the Harriet Tubmans of the day. We still are pushing forward and we're still trying to help regardless. Harriet didn't have time to stop. And I think so many of us carry that same push in us to our detriment. But Harriet was moving and she wasn't eating like we eat.
Mm.
How do we as African American women who feel this pressure to keep moving, how do we take a pause and step back?
I think the first thing is we have to understand where the pressure is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen so much support within the community for each other. We're here for each other. I think that's really important.
Mm.
I think we need to recognize that we have the support, that we're in this together. And that means that as a community, we need to take care of ourselves, not just keep pushing. It's a lot of it is really our relationship to constantly being in action, and that tiniest disconnect between the power and the importance of taking care of ourselves, of just resting. We do this, we take care of here so that we can take care of others. It's an important message. It's been out there forever, but I think we have to give ourselves permission as individuals and as a community to do that for ourselves with
When you
this understanding.
What's that? Say that again.
With this understanding that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can contribute to the whole.
And as women, and I got to talk about from my perspective
Mm,
and who I am and who you are and what
mm,
I see. Sometimes as we are trying to take care of this first gift that God gave us, the vessel, this body,
mm, mhm.
it can be met with opposition from even people that are in your own family, let
Yeah.
alone your circle of friends. What do you say to women to encourage them to continue? And how do we gently bring other people along?
Firstly, I think it's important to embrace that making change requires bravery. It requires a sense of courage. And what that looks like in our modern society and in our communities in a lot of different places is challenging the way things have always been. But what I've seen myself and what I believe to be true is that we have to be the change that we wish to see in the world. You know, that Mahatma Gandhi quote, we have to be the change. And if and we've all seen it in some small or big way,
Mm-hmm.
if we have the courage to say, you know what, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna go to bed. If we have the courage to be that person who makes smarter and healthier choices in our lives, that becomes an expression in our community. And the next thing you know, others are saying, what are you doing? What's she doing? She looks great. She feels great. Look at her. She seems so powerful. So we have to have that courage to choose ourselves. And we have to trust that that's the beginning. That's in many ways, that's all we need to do.
So how do you eat? With a fork?
Yes, mostly with a fork. For me, the biggest
However,
concern,
stopping is not bad.
For me, the biggest concern with eating is not am I eating too much fat or not enough protein or whatever. The biggest concern with eating is, am I eating too much?
Mm-hmm.
Am I eating too much? And am I eating food that's real? I love that Michael Pollan says, eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. And I love it.
Yeah, and I saw something that said, put on your plate food that's one ingredient or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the idea with that is that you're eating less processed stuff than you're eating food that is ingredients, that's real, that hasn't been, mixed with a whole lot of stuff to make it shelf ready and make it taste crazier, or like you're used to maybe for a lot of folks. But we have to be willing to learn some new things.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to try some new things. And we have to be willing to love ourselves, truly.
So, I was listening to a lecture today on water fasting and the benefits of intermittent fasting. The scriptures talk about fasting for spiritual purposes. Jesus said, doing the will of my Father is my food. In every religion or spiritual group across the globe, fasting is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
What is your view on fasting?
Well, my views on fasting primarily come from my Ayurvedic background and teachings. And where fasting sits in the Ayurvedic, canon, I suppose, or in the Ayurvedic world, is it comes from this understanding, as I've been saying, that we have this tendency to overwhelm ourselves with food or with information or with, experiences or whatever it may be. And it comes from this understanding that we aren't just a body, right? We're a whole. And so it's important to step away from the overwhelm. And that can look like eating less food. That can look like easing the burden on your body. That can look like, watching less, consuming less information, less social media, less television. And so within the Ayurvedic world, there's also this understanding that we need to build this kind of self-care into our lives. And so what we do is we build seasonal cleanses into our year. And so usually in the spring and in the autumn time, we take anywhere from a week to 3 weeks. And it is a fast in that it's you making a conscious choice to consume less. But it mightn't necessarily be a fast in the tradition or in the terms that people often think of fasts, where you eat absolutely nothing. There's an understanding in Ayurveda that we're all individuals. And so there isn't a one size fits all. Okay. I can't say that a water fast is going to be great for you or great for this person. It really depends on their circumstances, their physical and emotional, mental and emotional circumstances. But given where we are, in our modern society and how much we're dealing with on a regular basis, the idea of building in some lightness is that's the way that I kind of like to term it. It's building this lightness into your experience of living. That's important because heaviness has really become a part of who we are on a number of different levels.
Building some lightness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been fasting on Mondays for the last 6 years and have done some extended fast. And I tell you that there are times when I'm feeling so much better not consuming that I have to go, wow. I mean, you do just feel so much better. And when you think about animals, when animals are sick, they stop eating. When we get sick, we continue eating and pile on medication.
Yep.
And there is not an expectation that you're going to get well. Quite frankly, they start to watch you even closer for the other illnesses to show up. And my heart, dialysis clinics are popping up all over the country in record numbers, in particularly in the African American community, because so many medications are going to impact the kidneys as well as emotions. I mean, when you talk about, there's so many things that I'd like to talk about. But before you go, I do want to talk about how emotions impact our organs. But this whole thing of lightness and being aware of what we're putting in our bodies, what is it that people should be looking for other than feeling stuffed when you eat? Because there are people who feel like they haven't eaten enough unless they feel like they need to be rolled away from the table in a wheelbarrow.
I would say an experience of dullness. And sometimes we've been in a habit for so long that we don't know anything else. We don't know any way out of it. We don't see that there's another way of being. And that's another reason why I think it's a really good idea to make a conscious choice to, do a fast or a cleanse or something like that. Something that's not going to be kind of emotionally traumatic. Because a lot of people think, oh, I can't give up my food. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. And within Ayurveda, what we talk about is having food that's easier for you to digest and maybe a little less of it. And that's an easier thing for folks to come at. But it's having that experience that you described, Pamela. It's that experience where you think, oh, I feel so much better. Yeah. I feel so much clearer. You understand that is possible. And so sometimes knowing what to look for kind of starts by making a brave choice, just to step back a moment and try to create an experience that looks like what's possible. Yeah, but really, again, it's that feeling of heaviness, that feeling of dullness, if you can access that, if you can feel that. If your belly is feeling full, you've eaten too much. If you're feeling you've gone too far, well and truly. And so many of us just do that as a matter of course, as a matter of habit. We have, family members who say, or parents who say, you got to clean your plate. And so it's really tuning into that. It's also tuning into your elimination. So how's your elimination going? That's a really important thing for us to understand in Ayurveda. Our bodies are constantly giving us signals about the state of our health. And so it's important for us to understand what this language is. What is it telling you that you're constipated constantly? What is it telling you that you've got reflux? Answer is not necessarily, I need to find something to get rid of this. You got to ask yourself the question, as you did, where is this coming from?
Yeah. Elimination.
Yep.
People don't like to talk about poop. And some of them don't like to talk about it because they haven't did it in such a long time.
Yep.
I had a holistic doctor once ask someone, would you want to drive a car if it had a tire on it with a knot as big as that, and pointed to his stomach?
Mm.
We would not get in a vehicle with a big knot in the tire, yet we carry our bodies around and it has a big knot in the front of it.
Yep.
Talk about elimination and what should be happening. What should we be putting in our bodies so that we're eliminating properly?
So elimination is, it's an expression of it's an expression of a lot of things. And in fact, Ayurveda ties it to even things like anxiety. So in general, it's an expression of how much water you're getting. It's an expression of how much fiber you're getting. It's an expression of how much oils you're getting. And there isn't a one size fits all. In other words, I can't say drink 8 glasses of water and make sure you're getting, certain amount of healthy oils, etc. What I can say is across the board, it's important to understand that if you're experiencing constipation, you want to look at your levels of stress. You want to look at your how much water you're drinking, your levels of hydration. And you also want to look at if your diet is full of a lot of processed and dry foods, right? So people are eating a lot of crackers and a lot of processed, snacks and things like that. You want to make sure that you're getting enough fiber and that you're getting enough good, healthy fats in your diet. And it can be any one of those things can trigger experiences like constipation. So it's important to look at all of them.
Yeah, and that red meat can stay in your intestines for up to 7 years or some extended period of time. And how does the gut contribute to some of the illnesses that we see?
Well, there's lots of obviously scientific views about this. Ayurvedic views are quite simple. And they're simple for a reason. They're simple so that we can relate to them and understand them, and so that we don't feel disempowered when the language starts kind of moving out of our level of understanding. So Ayurveda says that we each have this digestive fire, right? It just talks about it as a fire. Really simple way for us to look at it and think about it, right? And that fire defines a lot of things. It defines how we digest everything, from information to that steak. You've seen it. You've got family members who can eat meat all day long and they're fine. They're pooping fine. Everything's great. No worries. So you've got to understand for yourself what triggers your fire, right? What slows it down? Is it too much cold food? Is it too much heavy food like dairy foods or meat or too many sweets? And so all of this, in order to understand all of this, you've got to tune in and pay attention to how things are moving through your body, how you're feeling after your meals. If that fire is compromised, right? If your ability to digest physically, this is the Ayurvedic view. If your ability to digest your food is compromised, we are whole, remember I talked about. So it's going to compromise everything. It's going to compromise how you're making your choices. It's going to compromise your relationships with yourself and the people around you. Because it's going to, you touched on this idea of the gut-brain connection. Everything is connected, and we have to believe that. We have to understand that. And so we have this responsibility to ensure that fire is burning brightly, as we say in Ayurveda. And that means not giving it too much, not overloading it, giving it the right kinds of foods that are going to be easy for you personally to digest, to move through. Yeah. And it means that we're engaging in activities and we're engaging in relationships that feed that fire, that inspire us, that motivate us, that keep the body warm and moving and engaged.
And because we have not been informed about the way the body works, we only hear about how good a particular food tastes in commercials. Yeah. We only talk about taste. In human commercials, for human food, it's only about taste. Mm-hmm. If it's dog food or cat food, they talk about nutrition. So isn't that quite interesting? So because we're not informed about how this food is impacting the physical vessel, which is physical, then we definitely are not getting the information about how it's making us feel. I was talking to someone who found out that his son, who he was having such trouble out of this kid in school, but
Mm.
found out that he was allergic to red dye.
Mm.
And, they were in the process of prescribing medication when they found out that this child was just allergic to red dye, and that so many people are allergic to red dye. And
Mm.
so we don't even understand, after we consume a meal that might have some things in it that may trigger emotions in us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even understand what just happened at the table. And if it's red, and for us, our children are drinking red drinks and
Yeah.
hot Cheetos, and we're eating hot sauce and
Mm-hmm.
ketchup and whatever else with red dye. I was like, wow, how many little Black children are suffering just because they are emotionally allergic, or they are
Yeah.
allergic to something that's triggering emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I think
go ahead.
I think that we need to understand, and we need to understand, as I've been talking about, that there is a connection. We're not just this collection of parts, as our Western medical system, which has plenty of great things to offer us. But we have to understand we're not just a collection of parts. There is a connection between everything. And Ayurveda even goes as far as to say who we are as a relationship between what's happening here, mind and body, and what's happening out there. And that may be the weather, that may be the environment that you're in, if there's tension in the household, if there's joy, whatever's happening out in the household. It may be even the things that you're surrounding yourself with, the furniture and I don't know how much stuff you've got in your room or in your space, or if your room or your space is dirty. Like, we've all had these experiences, haven't we, where you're in this room that's filthy and you're thinking, oh, you're feeling it somehow. All of these things are connected. And that's important for us to know.
Do you know,
Yeah?
it seems like your car drives better after you wash it?
Doesn't it?
It does. Why does it sound better? You just had a car wash.
There you go. There you go.
And so if the car feels better because it's washed and organized and clean, and we do, tend to get clutter. We all can do that. And so most people don't even think about how that is impacting them emotionally.
Yep.
So
No.
with Ayurvedic, and this all-encompassing, much like yoga, the marriage between the mind, the body, and the breath. Is there a certain age that you start in helping to move people along this journey?
It can start at every age. So I mentioned to you, I've got two 16-year-old children. And what it looks like for them is noticing how the experiences that they have, how the food that they eat, how the music they listen to, the television they watch, whatever it is, it's noticing how that makes them feel. It's a pretty simple practice. It's a matter of, it's not a matter of sitting on a meditation cushion for hours or anything like that. It's a matter of paying attention. And it also looks like something that I've kind of started from a young age. It looks like making choices that support your ability to digest. And in terms of meals, just family meals, it means kind of eating less stuff in front of the TV, understanding that, your mind-body complex, it doesn't like to multitask. So if you're reading or eating in front of the television, or, or driving or whatever it is, your body isn't going to be digesting things very well. So you're mainly just clogging things up. So it's just simple, it's a simple understanding of things like that. And then, as you get older and as you get more engaged with the world and the ability to make a lot of your own choices, it's taking a moment, taking some time around the choices that you make, if you've got it, to say, is this really for me? Is this really is this something that I really want? And for many people, that question confounds them. How do I answer that? How do I know? And one of my teachers of yoga once said, you have to live in the question. And what that really means is you have to be willing to ask the question with this understanding, with this trust that the answers will come. They'll show up, but you got to keep asking.
So you talked about your 16-year-olds. What about someone who may be watching who thinks, well, I'm in my 60s now. I got my tray of medication on the table. It may be too late for me.
Yeah. So Ayurveda was created for everyone, but the underlying purpose of Ayurveda, which is a sister science to yoga, is living a long life, is longevity. And so because these choices, because this wisdom is so simple and applies to everyone, and in many ways applies to everything you do, how you work, do you get enough sleep? Do you, what are you actually eating? It means that you can begin this at any time, at any age, getting just to know yourself a little bit better. And interestingly enough, even if for folks who are under the care of a doctor, understanding yourself better is going to help those folks who are caring for you and supporting you. Being able to turn up at a doctor's office and say, I'm only having bowel movements once a day and it's like this, and I drank this thing, but it made me feel like that, or I did this thing and I'm starting to move and it's making me feel like this, or just that gives them the information, more information to even be able to support you. And so there's no loser when we start trying to know ourselves better.
And how can people find you? You are in Australia. You own the business Body, Bliss and Soul, the author of Eat Like You Love Yourself.
Eat Like You Love Yourself. Yeah.
And a podcast.
Yes, I do have a podcast called Live Like You Love Yourself. You can find me at my website, www.blissbodyandsoul.com. Most of the work I do, because I'm in Australia, most of the work I do is online with folks. So I teach courses online, I do consultations online, and in 2021, my focus is going to be a lot more on this kind of thing, on spreading the message of self-care and spreading this idea of knowing and loving yourself to communities who perhaps haven't had enough of that message. So to BIPOC folks and to other folks around the world who we all need to hear it, but who aren't necessarily hearing it from the right people.
Yeah, you go to the grocery store and you see the cover of the magazines, and the people who are doing this practice don't necessarily look like you, so you think it's not for you.
Yep.
No offense, but it looks like it's just for skinny white girls.
That's it.
And it is not. Taking care of yourself is taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Period. Regardless to what you look like and who you are and where you live, you still have a responsibility to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
The scripture that says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. I think another question, Chara, that we can ask ourselves is, when we stand in judgment and God judges us on how we took care of ourselves, does that speak to how we took care of our neighbors? Because if you haven't taken care of you, how well are you treating other people?
That's a powerful question.
Rest in that one, huh? What do you say? Sit in that one?
Yeah.
Sit in the question. What was that you said?
Live in the question. Yeah.
Live in the question. How well are you taking care of yourself? Chara Caruthers in Australia. Where exactly are you?
I am near Byron Bay, Australia. So it's the northeastern coast of Australia, about 2 hours south of Brisbane and about 9 hours north of Sydney.
And so what took you to Australia?
I came here. I met my husband when I was at UCLA, and I came here. I finished school and I worked in LA for a couple of years, and then I decided to come here, and I really loved it. It's a really beautiful country. There's a lot. It has a simpler feel to the States. There's not as many. I mean, they have their own challenges, but I don't know. It's just a place where I feel like I can be really free, actually. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful place to live.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I so appreciate you accepting the invitation to share with other women and men who are watching Sisters of Wellness as we continue to encourage everybody to do all that you can do to take care of you. We hear so much about healthcare reform. And Chara, I want to start a human care reform movement because that's what needs to happen. To me, healthcare reform merely says we expect that you're going to be sick and you need some money to help pay for your sickness. And we need to stand firmly on, I am going to take care of me so that I will not need any medication, because you don't have to live a life of depending on medication.
Yeah.
And your book can help lead that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I am 100% behind that idea. You do not. We've been disempowered, and self-care is taking your power back.
Take care of yourself. Well, Chara, you take care of you and your beautiful children and husband, and we thank you again so much here at Sisters of Wellness for sharing with us on this Monday, and don't let it be your last time.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and I do look forward to reconnecting with you.
Excellent. We thank you all so much for joining us for this edition of SOW Sisters of Wellness, sowing love and wisdom. Please, we thank you for watching, and please do share. And don't forget to get Chara's book, Eat Like You Love Yourself. Until next time, I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. You can find this show and all of the other shows that we do on our website at www.atthewellnessnetwork.org. Cousin Josette, thank you for watching. She said, great interview.
Wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cousin Josette.
Yes. Until next time, I'm Pamela Marshall. I said that already. At the Wellness Radio TV, there is healing at the well. Make it a great moment. We'll see you next time.